Om. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha. Sarve santo niramayaha. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om. So we went through the Shruti, basic literature, and now Smriti. And Smriti literature, already I mentioned, there are 6 darshanas. Sometimes Niyaya and Vaisheshika mentioned together, 2 Purva and Uttara Mimamsa mentioned together, Sankhya and Yoga even mentioned together, and Vedanta and Charvaka mentioned separately, of course. So we spoke about these briefly. We can't speak about them in detail. And I wanted to give you the sense of what is the Vedanta. Yeah? Vedanta is a fundamental for Indian philosophy. Yes? Yoga Sutras also, but Vedanta is even more. So Vedanta, the ancient Vedanta is Upanishads, approximately 800, maybe from 1000 to 600 BC, the range of the original Upanishads. And Gita is included into Vedanta for some reason by the tradition, and Brahma Sutras. This is the old Vedanta, ancient. And there are many forms of Vedanta, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, 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 and so on, which we will look into briefly. So I wanted to stop with Vedanta today and to cover something which is important for us to know. So we have Upanishads, 12 major principal Upanishads. Here they are, all of them mentioned. And they belong to different samhitas, different shakhas of different Vedas. So as we learned, there are 4 Vedas. And there's somebody else, participant. Wait a minute, I will allow Stacy to come in. She's still with us. So there are 4 Vedas, and there are Upanishads assigned to different samhitas. So Rigveda Samhita, we are missing Kaushitaki, so sorry. So Rigveda Samhita has only 1 shakha left. So in the texts it is mentioned that in the ancient texts, in the Kurma Purana and other Puranas, it is mentioned that there were originally 21 shakha, 21 recensions of the Rigveda. Now we have only 1 left, Shakala. Shakha means a branch, or the way of recitation, recension. And newly, there was recently discovered by Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute 1 more shakha, Bashkala shakha, which I'm not mentioning here in the scheme. So Bashkala has only Bashkala Upanishad. There is no Bashkala Samhita. There is no Brahmana, there is no Aranyaka, only Upanishad. But it has to be mentioned. But officially, there is only 1 shakha, that is Shakala. And so, as we know, Rigveda Samhita, it is in this recension. And so Rigveda has Aitareya and Kaushitaki, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad. So there are 2 Upanishads very fundamental, that is Aitareya and Kaushitaki, which belong to Rigveda. It's for you important to know. And Samaveda originally had 1,000 shakhas. It looks like it's a symbolic number, meaning infinite numbers of shakhas. And only 2 are left nowadays. It's Kauthuma and Jaiminiya. And in both of these, we have Chandogya and Kena Upanishad. Yajurveda had 100, also I think it's symbolic number, shakhas, according to the tradition. And nowadays we have 4 shakhas of Krishna Yajurveda and 2 of Shukla Yajurveda. So Yajurveda itself split on Krishna and Shukla Yajurveda, 2 different traditions, as it were. So 4 shakhas of Krishna Yajurveda would be Kathaka Samhita or Katha Shakha, Kapishthala Kathaka, which is even more ancient, but I'm not even writing it here, Taittiriya Shakha, Taittiriya Samhita, and Maitrayani Samhita. So we have 4 of Krishna Yajurveda, and we have Upanishads within these Samhitas, Katha or Kathaka, Katha Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Shvetashvatara, which is independent, and Maitri Upanishad, most probably belonging to Maitrayani Samhita, but it is included as a 10th chapter of Taittiriya Aranyaka. And 2 shakhas of Krishna Yajurveda. 2 shakhas of Shukla Yajurveda. It's Madhyandina and Kanva. And they both have Isha and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Isha Upanishad is a part of Samhita itself. Brihadaranyaka is not. It is a part of rather Shatapatha Brahmana there is in between. So, and there is also Atharva Veda with 9 shakhas, and nowadays we have only 2 left. That is Shaunaka and Pippalada. Pippalada has only Prashna Upanishad, Shaunaka has the whole Gopatha Brahmana. And all the Upanishads which do not have any origin are assigned to Atharva Veda. Mandukya, Mundaka, and so on. There are hundreds of Upanishads which are assigned to Atharva Veda nowadays. So this is about the structure. If you have some questions, if something you want to clarify, you please interrupt. Don't kind of switch off because there are too many words and too many explanations. It's a structure. I'm speaking about the structure. Now I'm coming to the philosophy. It would be more interesting. So last time we went with you through Sankhya Darshan. Sankhya was important because it's a part of all of Vedanta, of Yoga, of even Nyaya partially, and even Vaisheshika. So it is everywhere. Even Charvakas kind of accept Sankhya's division because Manas, sense mind, is dominating the indriyas. It is the 6th sense, or 6th indriya, as it were. So we looked into it in detail last time. I didn't speak about karmendriyas because it's altogether a very sophisticated topic. And we will speak about it later more in detail. Now it's just introduction. So Sankhya appears, if you look at this, Sankhya starts from 800 Proto-Sankhya. We find it already being born in Upanishads. We have the elements of Sankhya in Upanishads. And then we see it clearly in the Gita. Gita forms more vivid Sankhya. And finally, we have it in the Ishvara Krishna Sankhya Karikas of 2nd century AD, which is already kind of beginning of the mental structure of consciousness. And it's quite obvious that the mind dominates all other indriyas. So if in the Upanishads, mind is one of the faculties of consciousness. And in Sankhya, mind is dominating. He is the synthesizer of all what indriyas bring to the mind. Mind is a power of focusing on a particular action of consciousness or indriyas. Yeah? So mind can focus on something else. And holding on it, it forms a particular experience or brings that formation into life, which we call thoughts. Yeah? Thoughts are those formations, sanskaras, experiences, which because of the mind, because of its focal point, it gave it right to be, as it were. And from that time on, it can exist by itself. This is a topic which I was dreaming today, actually. I was dreaming, could I explain to you that what is thought? Thought is that focal point of the mind which gives the right for that energy and that consciousness or that formation to be in that particular being. Yeah? So it lives by itself. So as Sri Aurobindo says, once experienced, everything has the infinite right, eternal right to be. Because it is coming from the truth, from the being. Yeah? So, but that experience of it in a particular form gives it right to be in that form. And these are sanskaras, what we know as sanskaras in Buddhism, and which are existing by themselves, everything which went through us as an experience, thought, feeling, which we charged with our being, with our soul, now has right to be and can come back to me. Whatever I experienced, good or bad, comes back to me to try me out again. Can it live through me again? No. So I can brush it away, I can accept it and relive it, as it were, give it a new portion of life, new energy. And these thoughts can also travel and go to other people and kind of dominate them and live through them, who are attracting them, attracting the same type. And we can see we live in the ocean of these thoughts. And everyone who thinks whatever he thinks and experiences whatever he does comes to us. So we are kind of like fish in the water in this. Yeah? We are just breathing it. We are pervaded by all these thoughts. They're traveling through us. Only we are not catching them in time, as it were. But the moment we catch them in time, it starts living in us. It starts dominating us, yeah? Determining our behavior, and so on. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So these mother says, for example, in 71, you can't imagine, she says, what comes to me now. My thoughts and wishes from my childhood and from my teenage. She wanted something there in the shopping in Paris. It comes now. It is still there, living somewhere in the air, in Akasha, and comes back and tries to live again through the mother. Mother looks at it with a kind of wonder. Where are you coming from? So you can imagine. So whatever we lived during our life, we created so many sanskaras that they may try to come back. Unless we are liberated. Liberated means we see them as they are. We understand that they are not ourselves. This is liberation. We found something in us which is unborn, eternal and infinite. And it looks at all these formations and can choose or brush them away or take them or use their help, whatever. We are free. We are not determined by them, unconsciously. So this is the mind, its role. Its role is to select, to focus. Yeah? You may listen to this presentation and your mind may be elsewhere, thinking about what should I buy? The milkman is coming soon. Oh, does he come tomorrow, the milkman? No, most probably COVID. So your mind will be elsewhere and I will be talking this. So there will be double kind of, your mind is pulling away your concentration. So we are moving now into the philosophy of Upanishads, and this is an important. We are coming to the faculties of consciousness, my favorite topic, which I kind of inherited from the Upanishads, because Upanishads do not see it in this way, not in the Sankya's way. So this is what Sri Aurobindo writes in the Upanishads. In the ancient conception of the universe, our material existence is formed from the 5 elemental states of matter, the ethereal area. This is exactly the Sankhya's, Panchamahabhutani, fiery, liquid and solid. Everything that has to do with our material existence is called elemental, adhibhuta. In this material, there move non-material powers. These are gods, as it were, mind, through the mind force and life force. That work upon matter. And these are called gods or devas. Everything that has to do with the workings of non-material in us is called adhidaiva. That which pertains to the gods. So our faculties of consciousness are actually gods in the Upanishads. Not the Indra, Vishnu, when we spoke today about them, but the faculties, seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, feeling. These are the gods operating within the substance, the faculties of Purusha. But above the non-material powers containing them, greater than they, is the self or spirit, Atman. And everything that has to do with this highest existence in us is called the spiritual, Adhyatma. So behind these faculties there is the spirit, Purusha, or Atman, or Brahman. We will distinguish them, Brahmana, Atman, and Purusha later. But in this case, they are all there. So the ancient Vedanta viewed this kind of, had this vision. So our faculties, adhidaiva, operation by consciousness, can be turned either within to its proper origin, to the self which contains them, or to without, to the bodily existence, to the material manifestation. So when we turn without, we see only outer being. When we turn within, we don't see outer being, we see the inner self, so to say. So the wise, as the Upanishads would say, closed his eyes and ears and looked and listened within. So within there is a being, the origin of all these faculties, and that is the way of going within. But when we go within, we forget about without. When we go without, we forget about within. So this is the problem of our existence. We can look either without or within. We can't somehow do both. How can we do both? How can we stay within and be without? So, and Sri Aurobindo says that the Upanishads offer this Vedantic yoga, how to do that, how to be within and without. By the way, in Savitri, when Satyavan meets Savitri for the first time, he says the same thing to her. When I looked at nature, I forgot about God. When I looked for the God, I forgot about nature. So it is actually a fundamental issue of our psychology. Yes, that's why the meditation, notice when we meditate, we become immobile, we don't breathe, don't move, we close our eyes, we look within. We don't see the outer world. But once we are engaged in the outer world, we hardly have any glimpse from within. We are very active outside. So the senses are turned either without or within. So the solution was offered by the Upanishads that staying without these indriyas, these faculties, have to become, as Sri Aurobindo says, consciously passive and perceptive of the inner being. They should not run for their own self-satisfaction. When the faculties or these senses are running for their self-satisfaction, we want to see beautiful things, hear beautiful music, feel beautiful touch, be comfortable in the body. We are constantly feeding the senses with from outside world, trying to get them satisfied. Yeah? But when the senses realize that actually they have the inner origin, and if they stay outside in this physical body, but refuse to satisfy themselves by outer means, and turn within and wait for the inner light to travel through them, because they are the bridges between the inner and outer, they are the bridge. It is through them that the inner light can reach to the surface. They call to it and wait for it. And until it comes, they don't look for any other satisfaction. Notice, it's the most difficult part, because we are used to satisfy them by outer means. So, and they receive the first flashes of that inner light, then they feel real satisfaction. And that those lightnings can reach to the surface. So, and unfortunately, these lightnings do not come immediately in the abundance. They come one by one and very rarely. But if they continue to wait for them, and only for them, only for the divine, so to say, that's why they have to be turned only to the divine, then these lightnings become more frequent. And then more and more they come until that becomes a flood of light. And that flood, the ocean flood of light, the wave, the tsunami, overfloods our surface existence. And only then we have the full realization of the spirit in matter. Then there is no more looking without or within and separating the within and without. So this is the solution of the yoga of the Upanishads, which is very different from Yoga Sutras. The solution is found by mental means, by concentrating, focusing, developing the power of concentration of the mind, and by that coming to samadhi. Here is something else. All the faculties, including mind, including seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, all of them have to turn within and become receptive of that light and allow it to act through them onto the surface. Yeah? So in the Upanishads, these three dvandvas are mentioned constantly. Manas and Vak, Chakshuh and Shrotram, Prana and Apana, or Prana and Annam. Manas and word, so mind and word, seeing and hearing, breathing in and breathing out, or life force and annam, animated matter. Matter is holding the power of vital within it. In Taittiriya, when defining Brahman, Bharigu says, Annam pranam chakshuh shrotram mano vacham iti. These are the 6 major definitions of Brahman acting upon manifestation. These are the faculties of consciousness acting upon manifestation. And I located all of them here. Here you can see all of them. Chakshus, sight, seeing, Shrotram, hearing, Vak, speech, Manas, mind, Prana, breathing in, Annam, matter. So you can see that they are in opposites, as it were. Chakshuk and Shrotram, seeing and hearing, Manas and Vak, the mind and word, and Annam and Prana, matter and Prana. Yeah. So this is how it is viewed.
So does this relate to what we even did yesterday? The apprehensive and comprehensive?
Yes, absolutely must relate, because that is the fundamental truth. Yes. So where is apprehensive and where is comprehensive cognition in these? How would you see it?
Yeah, I'm a little still confused about that, but I think apprehensive is the hearing? No,
Apprehensive is the seeing.
the seeing, and comprehensive is the hearing.
Yes. So you can see that Manas and Chakshuk on one side, they
Oh,
manifest the form, the power, and Shrotram and Vak, hearing and speaking, represent the comprehensive cognition or the name, nama. You know? So there is the form and name. These are two fundamental terms of the ancient Vedanta. And we spoke about this, that you can see anything, you can see the pen, you again draw the pen as the form, and you know that the pen is doing something, it can write. Yeah, it doesn't write now, but you know about it by the name. Name pen tells you that it will be writing if needed. But now it's just a stick. Even the stick you know by the name, because stick tells you that it is longish thing. Yeah. And longish also you know by the name. So everything you know by comprehension, but the form tells you or draws your attention where you apprehend it. You keep the form in the mind by the mental concentration, and then you understand what this form represents, what it does.
so this is the basis of language as you expressed yesterday, and this even in a way becomes the basis of the foundations, right, of Indian culture.
Absolutely. It's a foundation of our existence, of our consciousness, acting as knowledge and power. Power is the form, this is the power, and knowledge that it can write.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
So it's the
absolutely.
same in both the places, like it's
It is in
language.
all places. It's everywhere because there is nothing else but this.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it's not that can be located only there and that can be located only there. No, it's just penetrating. It's the knowing which everything is known. Yes, the knowledge by knowing which you can know everything because you understand how things are made. Now, within the Sankhya, what we looked into last time, it's a bit different. You see, what happened here is that Manas started to dominate Indriyas,
Mm.
and it was considered to be the major faculty of consciousness which draws others, and the others are secondary, whereas in this vision, they are all equal. Manas is
Equal.
one of them.
Mm.
Yeah. So you can have the seeing or hearing or speaking free from the selection of the mind. So who would be then selecting it? That means there is a Purusha behind. Purusha is the source, your soul or your witness consciousness. Yeah, your being, your witness is the one who dominates, who acts upon or through these faculties upon the manifestation. And not the ego sense, not the manas is selecting. Manas is only focusing
Mm.
on different events and contexts. Yeah? Whereas seeing is viewing things, and the focus is helping to hold that seeing on a particular point. But seeing is not subordinated to the focusing. Yeah?
Mm.
It is still felt or understood or experienced as the faculty of consciousness.
I think you should just do a course on that too.
Yeah, definitely. There is much written, by the way. I have like maybe 100 pages written on these faculties. and the study went quite deep, and psychologically is very interesting to see how this paradigm, ancient paradigm of the Upanishads, bypassing the paradigm of Sankhya. You see, Sankhya's paradigm is our modern paradigm of today's understanding. We all understand our senses as subordinate to the mind. We all believe that the mind is selecting what we see, what we hear, what we think, what we speak. It's the mind dominating them. Yeah? We do not see them as equal faculties. And that is the mental structure.
Mm.
We all believe in the mind. That's why we miss so much. And also that's why we can be very efficient in creating all these varieties of technologies, yes? Because we can focus on one point and hold it there until it is done or perfected. And since we believe in mind, we can choose on what to focus, yeah, and forget about the other things. So we are very selective in hearing, speaking, thinking, and by that we create the varieties in manifestation. All right, so it is in brief. Today I wanted to come and to finish the Smriti literature and to cover something more on Puranas and Tantras. So just to give you an overview, there are 18 Mahapuranas and 18 Upapuranas, smaller Puranas. It's the whole huge literature, a huge number of things. I will show you at the end how many verses are there. Then there is a huge tradition of tantric tradition, even bigger than Puranas put together. It is Shaiva, Vaishnava, and Shakta. These are three major realms. And within Shaiva, there is also Ganapati. Within Vaishnava, there is Krishna. There are different branches in different states of India. So Shaiva Siddhanta and Kashmir Shaivism, we know the most. Shakta is Srividya from the south, and Vaishnava is Pancharatra. These are the most well-known traditions. There is also Buddhist tantras and also Tibetan Buddhist tantras, very famous. So Tantra is a huge new application of the Vedic knowledge to Kali Yuga, as Tantra itself says about its own literature, that it is Veda for Kali Yuga. So I will come to this part of the Puranas today and cover some of them just to show you the varieties and the numbers of major Mahapuranas. So you can see that they belong to different traditions of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva Puranas. So all of them are distributed between these three. So we have, and you see the number of verses, what a huge number of verses. Yeah? Brahma Purana, 10,000 verses. Padma, 55,000 verses. It's a huge number. Vishnu Purana, 23,000 verses. It's five volumes. It's a huge number. And you can imagine then Padma Purana is double than Vishnu Purana. Shiva Purana is very famous, or it's called sometimes Vayu Purana. Bhagavata Purana, well known. It is the 19th book of Mahabharata, 18,000 verses. Narada, Markandeya. Markandeya is very famous Purana. We have there Devi Mahatmya, yeah, the adoration of the Divine Mother. Markandeya was the immortal Rishi. And so on. You just have a look, and let me come in a minute. I have to switch off something. Yes, sorry. Okay. Bhavishya Purana is about future. And by the way, Bhavishya Purana describes Kali Yuga quite interestingly. If you read the description of Kali Yuga in Bhavishya Purana, you would recognize our world immediately. Everything what is written there came true. Everything. It's amazing how precise they can be. And so many more. Markandeya Puranam was my favorite, and Vishnu Purana. These two Puranas I studied. It's a huge literature by itself. And yeah. So if you have some questions, I will stop here. I would rather discuss with you certain things. So this would end our formal introduction of the literature. I'm not going to kavyas and not to bhakti movement of Kabir and so on, because it's already kind of deviating slowly away from Sanskrit literature. I'm staying within the Sanskrit literature. But I will mention them because they brought us closer to our modern times, yes? And they are very important for India, this bhakti shift. Yeah, Mirabai, her songs and her hymns. And we will look into them separately and to particular kavyas. But mainly I want to stay with this body of knowledge. Hi. Yeah, please go ahead, John. You unmute yourself and then speak. You have to unmute. There's this button there.
There we are.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. Well, I hardly know how to ask this question, so please forgive me. My language about this is very small, but you were talking about focusing, and I think you referred to Buddhism and focusing with the mind as opposed to focusing with what are the other elements, whatever they're called, you know, the six that you faculties. And I'm wondering if you could explain that a little bit more, what that means.
Yeah, the mind is the faculty which is focusing. Yeah? Focusing consciousness, awareness, attending to something. Yeah? For example, I can focus my sight on something, or I can focus my hearing on something. Yeah? Or I can focus myself in speaking something. So this capacity to focus whatever faculty is the mind. Yeah? Capacity to focus, to hold attention on a particular activity. I can focus even on something physical. Yeah? I don't need to physical by feeling it in the hand, yeah, by touching. So, or I can touching it and not focus on it. I focus on some other thought. Yeah. So, or I can focus on several things simultaneously, which is kind of multitasking, yes, which is quite difficult. But once we become efficient at it, that becomes interesting, that you can do several things at a time. One is going to the background a little, other is staying more in front. But then you can train yourself to be doing simultaneously several things, so the mind becomes more powerful. It can hold several activities. That is the mind. That's why mind became dominant and major in the Sankhya, yeah? Because mind is the one which selects what we are focusing on. They thought that the mind is doing it, or well, they knew that it was Purusha behind and the mind is the faculty, but still it became the sixth sense, which is choosing what we are seeing, hearing, speaking, and so on. As Yajnavalkya would say, it is not by the eye that you see, but by the mind. It's not by the ear that you hear, but by the mind. So the mind is choosing what to hear. Hearing is only the technology, so to say, and mind is the selection. That is the belief. But in the Upanishads, it's interesting. Mind is one of the faculties, not the only one. So this shift that mind is the only faculty, which is choosing from the senses as they feed mind with information. They just feed mind with information, and mind selects what to choose. Yeah, it's like a menu or whatever, and you choose from menu what to have. Then in the Upanishads, it's not so, and that is interesting. That mind is one of them, and maybe not even major one. Prana is more major. When they are competing, one of Upanishads, they are competing who is the major faculty among them. So
I see.
They tried, that's like a fairy tale story. They tried, they said, okay, Vak, speech said, I am the major one because whatever I speak is happening. They said, okay, then you leave. Let us see. You leave the body. So Vak left and the person became mute, but he lived. Nothing happened. Then one by one, like this, blind, he became blind, went aside, then became deaf and so on. And then when prana left the body, he died. So they decided, okay, prana is the major faculty. Yeah. Without prana, body cannot exist. So you can be also without mind. Brainless. Yes, Jessel.
I'm not sure entirely, but I think the Indian aesthetics is based on this, to enhance all the faculties and enhance the nature and the use of the mind. I think it is, the whole concept of the rasa bhava, the sense mind, because it is based, a part of the aesthetics is based on the tanmatras.
Yes, I agree totally. So when we look at the Indian tradition from the point of view of Advaita Vedanta, we see that they want to kill all the Vairagya. Vairagya means no color, no joy. You have to kill all joy of life. But it is only one view, which is very ascetic view. But if you look from the point of view of this, what you say, aesthetics, from the point of view tantra also, of rasa and bhava theory, you will see that it is very different, and that enhancement of the faculties, I would call them faculties rather than senses, as rasas or bhavas.
Yeah, right. Faculties, you're right.
Is actually making life rich and much more conscious and much more worth living and offering it to the divine than just destroying it and going back to the origin.
Yeah, but that's what the Indian aesthetics also talks about, the entire chitta shuddhi. So the senses are just a means. So again, you're right, not senses. If we look at them as faculties, as a process. I'm just trying to correlate. This is naturally just correlating.
Yes, absolutely. And if you say this, you see why we are kind of belittling senses, because of Sankhya. We look at senses as inferior. Oh, this is feelings, feelings. Feelings are inferior always. But because of the mind, because of the mental structure, mind dominates. Mind is superior. Senses are inferior. True. But it is not so.
Yeah. Question here. So if, like you were saying in Sankhya, that the mind was what we use to focus, in the Upanishads, do we use other faculties to focus?
No, mind is the only power of consciousness to hold it upon any activity. This is the power of the consciousness. The sight is the power of the consciousness to distinguish, to discern, to see the difference, to apprehend. Hearing is the power of consciousness to comprehend, to understand how things are related, though they are not visibly related, but understand what they may do and how they may act upon each other on the scale of time and space. Yeah. So each of these elements are elements of consciousness, indispensable for consciousness to function.
I see. Okay. Okay.
Because what is the point of concentrating consciousness if you don't, after concentration, you would not know anything about it?
Mm.
So without seeing, how would you even focus consciousness on any object if you don't even distinguish this object by seeing? Or how would you understand this pen, even seeing something, even concentrating, holding? How would you understand what it is if there would be no hearing, knowing that it is a pen, that it can write? So all these are simultaneously acting faculties.
Okay.
And each one of them plays a particular role, and they are equal in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
They are not equal in their activity. They're not that each one can focus or each one can distinguish. Yeah? When mind is focusing, the sight is distinguishing and the hearing is comprehending what it is about. Yeah? Sight is distinguishing the form. The hearing is understanding what the form can do to the other forms and other actions and activities in time and space. And the mind is holding all this situation. Yeah? Holding in front of Purusha. Purusha is behind.
Perceiving. It's doing the process of perceiving.
Yes, perceiving. Yeah. Cognizing.
Mm.
You're right.
Vladimir, I had a question.
Yes, Jayashree.
What are Dwandars?
Dvandva is dualities.
Okay. So these
Pairs.
pairs. Okay. These are the pairs of dualities.
Yeah, Manas and Vak, pair. Chakshuh and Shrotram, another pair. Seeing and hearing, comprehensive and apprehensive. We looked into it in our linguistic class also. It's exactly, linguistics is helping this, and this helps linguistics. Everything helps because it's only one knowledge.
Yes.
Right. And why they are pairs? It's also interesting. Word and mind. Notice the word. What is the word? And the word is another faculty of consciousness, the faculty of self-expression of consciousness. I communicate something. I speak out. Something comes to me, some intention is breaking through, and I want to express it. I want to bring it into manifestation. So I speak about it, and the equilibrium which was created before is disturbed. It reacts to it. And once it reacts to it, it changes its substance. So the word is constantly acting upon manifestation, expressing the deeper truth, the inner truth, bringing it forward. The name. What is the name? The rishis discovered new names. Names are the actions of consciousness which change the manifestation. If you know the name, you know everything. You know what it does, how it acts. You know its character. You comprehend its action. That is the name. So this is another faculty of consciousness, of self-expression.
Wow.
Thank you. It's very deep.
Right. So it's not just the word in linguistic sense which we speak. It's any expression. It can be a gesture. It's also a word. Or silence. In the moment where it says something. In that moment, the silence speaks. And that is the word. Yeah, and these are four, what we call them Brahma Chatushpad, that is Manas and Vak, Chakshuh and Shrotram. And notice, and let me project again, since we are already here, about this Manas and Vak, Chakshukh and Shrotam. So Jessel brought us back to these faculties. So look at these four on the side. The Shrotam and Vak represent the name, the comprehensive cognition. Manas and Chakshukh on the left side represent the Rupam, the form or the power, apprehensive cognition. So Manas is active, Chakshukh is perceptive, Shrotam is perceptive, Vak is active. So we have active and perceptive faculty from apprehensive and comprehensive cognition. Recognizing the form and knowing what this form can do, what it is about, how it relates to all other forms. We know it through the name, Nama.
And now what does the prana and annam do?
Yes, a good question. So what are they actually then? If these are Brahma Chatushpad, means Brahman on four pillars, or Brahman on four legs, four-legged Brahman if you want, it is by these four, by Nama and Rupa, that he enters into this manifestation as prana, as life. It is the spirit which manifests itself as life force, which is embodied in this being. This being is a result of that life force. This body is nothing but the, location of all these faculties. Notice why this body exists. It exists because it can see, it can hear, it can touch. Touch is here, annam, touch. It can feel prana, it can think, it can speak. It is for that purpose that the body is built. Body is the embodiment of all these faculties behind. It takes it into the physical form and builds these organs of eye. Eye is slowly built evolutionary from the beginning. From amoeba, monocellular organism is already there, trying to communicate, trying to see, trying to hear, but doesn't have organs yet. So eventually, slowly, over billions of years, it evolves these bodies which can see, hear, touch, move. Yeah? And it comes to this human body finally, which can now speak about these faculties, can think about them.
So word then becomes at the center.
Word is, well, everything is at the center, of course. Word is one of those who are at the center, definitely. The expression of self-consciousness, which is bringing constantly new meanings, pushing forward. Pushing forward the boundaries. Sri Aurobindo speaks about this word. We read about it in the...
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So the word is not literally vak. It's not speech. Word is on the very higher sense. That's why I said it would be the center, right? It's
Look at
that
this.
initiates this whole process.
Okay, I agree with you because I'm the person of the word. I love the idea. But maybe we are, interestingly enough, we are people of different capacities or with different domination of the faculty. Notice there are three pairs. So, and there are also three locations. On the one side, we have person of seeing, on the other person of hearing, on the middle person of touch, tactile. There are only three accesses to reality through seeing, hearing, and touch. And there are no more. No through smell and taste. These are not accesses to reality. They are additional faculties which are already inbuilt in the material body. We need material body for them. But these are independent streams of consciousness. Sri Aurobindo speaks about this. Seeing is the highest faculty, is revelation, drishti. Hearing is shruti, the inspirational knowledge. Comprehensive inspirational knowledge. And touch is what we call viveka, interesting. It's intuition.
Mm.
Touch is interestingly embodying both the discernment of the form and the understanding of the form is inbuilt in this touch. When we touch, you could feel, yes, the thing, and you can recognize the hardness or softness, and you also can feel what this thing is for you. Is it hostile, or it is friendly touch, or it is hostile touch? How do you know? So there is a comprehensive part in it. The friendly touch and the hostile touch. The touch of the lover and the touch of the torturer. It's interesting. You just have to meditate, kind of contemplate on this. You will discover so much from this vision of the Upanishads.
I think I've listened to this lecture, I mean this concept so many times, and I never fully understood. And now I just think I little bit I think I understood. Like I related it to yesterday's lecture, so I'm like it's
Yeah, you have to relate more points. We have to connect more dots. Yeah? And once we connect more and more dots, we will see how it is shining through. It's really the knowledge which is worth studying, Upanishads.
Vladimir, I had one question. You said in silence is the word.
Yes.
I think that's a profound thing you just said. Could you please explain it a little bit more? I mean, in silence is the word?
Yeah. What is word? Yeah? Word is an expression of what? Of consciousness. Yeah? It's a vibration of consciousness which acts. Yeah? It's a power which acts upon the being. Yeah? Highlights a portion of the being in a particular way, and by that acting and manifesting it. The word is manifesting. Yeah? We, in our linguistic part, we learned about it. So, and silence is what is silence? Is another, this perceptive part of hearing. When silence is there, how do you know that it is silence? Because you have hearing. Hearing is actually the highest hearing is a total silence. That means there is no boundary, there is no focal point of hearing something. You hear everything, silence. So the whole consciousness, the whole being is heard, as it were. And so the vibration of that particular silence or that particular hearing is the word. So Shrotram is perceptive and work is active of the same faculty. The same with Manas and Chakshukh. It's amazing if you think of it. And that is the Chakshukh is perceptive. When you see, you should stop thinking. And when you start moving, actively seeing, can you imagine, not passively seeing, but actively seeing, then it is imagining, thinking, moving something, and that is the mind. The mind is moving the sight. That's why the witness is moved. Yes, 1 second. I got my tea with a reception of Jayashri.
Are you enjoying it?
Radhe brought me just now.
Okay.
So nice. Some Indian kind of sense. I got it back from you. Thank you very much for teaching Radhe how to make Indian tea.
Very welcome.
Great. Okay, we can stop here for today because it's time already. We are over time.
Thank you.
Yes, and we will continue next time. So we have much more on our plate. We will also look into Upanishads later and Brahmanas, into Vedas, and we will kind of unfold one by one different structures, yeah, from the Sankhya to Upanishads and to the Veda. Veda is another paradigm of knowledge which we will look into. Great. I am closing with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santo Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.